I want mercy, and mercy has not been given.
24 hours in one of Ireland's most haunted castles, Charleville.
Hello and welcome to Most Haunted. In our search to find somewhere where things literally go bump in the night, we've come to Ireland, to a place called Charleville Forest Castle, where we're going to be locked in for 24 hours.
Charleville Forest Castle is located in the centre of Ireland near the town of Tullamore. Charles William Bury, the first Earl of Charleville, built the castle in the 1700s over the top of an ancient Druid burial ground where people were buried alive to stop the spread of the plague. There is a labyrinth of dungeons that lie beneath the castle, though why they were used is not really clear. Many people over the years have encountered ghostly apparitions, glowing lights and noises, the sound of ghostly laughter to terrified screams. Would we experience anything similar?
This is a beautiful castle.
Yes.
But a lot of the hauntings here are supposed to be around sounds. Why do you think that is?
Well, most commonly, haunted places are haunted, if you like, by sounds rather than apparitions and smells. Sounds are the more common phenomena that are reported.
What about this, a séance? Because we are going to do a séance tonight. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I wanted to reconstruct a typical Victorian séance here because we've not tried that before, as you say, as an experiment, if you like. We're going to have red light set up.
What does that do?
Well, red light, when sort of séance took off in the spiritualist heyday, which was in 1848, began in Hydesville in the USA, two sisters actually started knocking on tables and asking for responses, and things started to knock back, and that's really where séances took off from. And they used to use a red bulb for the light. Now, that was just coincidence, really, but that's what they used. And now, séances are performed with red light. And the reason that people do that now is because they say the ectoplasm, which is the sort of substance that ghosts are supposed to be made of, is only seen by a human eye in red light conditions. So we've got two red lights here that we're going to set up, and hopefully we'll be able to see some ectoplasm tonight, if such a thing exists.
And I bet you nobody will be stay sitting at that table.
I'll stay sitting.
Well, you would, because you're brave.
We've got one other experiment too that I'm not going to tell you about now, but it's quite an exciting one.
I've lived here for 12 years. We came over from the States. It was a fairy tale castle that was just going to ruin. The rain was pouring in. It was just incredible. My son, when we came here, was very young. I'd say when he went missing, we were terrified because we had heard a story about a little girl falling off the stairwell. And sure enough, he was at the bottom of the stairs. And he said, "Don't worry, Mommy." He said, "A little boy and girl held my hand." And then we started to hear voices outside our rooms, mumbling, not clear. You couldn't hear clearly what they were saying, but it was evident somebody else was there. And then right above my room was the children's nursery. And I woke one morning at 3 and heard children seemingly running and shouting and screaming, and I said, "Oh God, somebody's gotten in." So I took the torch and went upstairs, and there was absolutely no one. And that happened maybe 3-4 times in a row, and then it would happen just every so often, and there was never anyone there. And then we found out it was nursery, so it would be normal. They'd be laughing. In some of the bedrooms, you'd hear a child crying. My little girl used to go and play with the little girl that fell from the stairwell. Maybe when she was about 6, she'd say, "I'm going and playing." And she wasn't the type of child that makes up friends. So I just didn't say anything, let her go and play. Then my mother is the one that saw them, actually. The kids don't remember much of their vision of them. But she was in her bedroom on winter solstice, which we didn't know at the time. And she woke and thought my stepfather was crossing the room in a red robe until she realized he was asleep. And the man with the red was as clear as you and I, with a big red greatcoat. And then the little girl who had blue ribbons from her hair. They didn't say anything, and she kept watching. And then as she was looking, there appeared, oh, she said anywhere from 15, 17 druids. It was a large number in hooded white cowls. And they all approached her bed, right around it, formed a circle, and all went like this. Now, they weren't as clear. They were, I guess maybe they're not as strong. They all went like this to her. And then gradually all vanished. She was very surprised. She was curious as to what they wanted. You know, would they maybe speak? Could we see why they were here? Who were they? There was an ancient druid site here with the ancient forest, the oak forest. It was also a center for learning, so that could have been monks. Or this was a mason house, so it could have also been masons. So we don't know which category they were. We figured the little girl was the one that fell. Then when I was reading a book, I came across this. It was a bust of Francis Johnston, who was the architect of the castle. And it was him as a young man. She stopped me. She said, "That's the man in the red." So it was Francis Johnston in the red. Then several months later again, we found a book on the first Earl who had the castle built. And she was again looking over my shoulder, and she said, "That's the man in the green." And he was the first Earl, Charles William Bury, and he had the castle built. When we have a good party, people will report activity, things that have happened. A friend of Dudley's, who's a professor and very serious, the children said to him after a party, they said, you know, Richard wouldn't close his door, he wouldn't shut his light off. What was wrong with him? He's grown up. So he came down and I said, "Richard, what's wrong?" He said, "Well," he said, "I wouldn't mind," he said, "except there were two English gentlemen, obviously from another century, talking and drinking and having a wonderful time." He said, "But I couldn't see them." So, and then people that generally don't believe things are very surprised. Skeptics, they like to play tricks on skeptics and kind of show themselves, or you might hear a scream, or children are crying somewhere. They're not scary. They're quite friendly. I mean, I think I'd actually miss them if they were gone.
We had only been in the castle for a few hours, and already some strange things were happening to many of us.
I was just on the other side, just preparing. All of a sudden, the bag just started swinging quite dramatically like that. And at first I thought it was a cat playing with the bag, and it wasn't. It was just swinging quite happily on its own. And no one was in the kitchen. It wasn't a breeze or anything. And it was just swinging away. The cat came through the door on the other side, and all sort of morning it's been round my legs, playing and, you know, messing about. And all of a sudden it came in, lay quite close to the floor, ears back against its head, and wouldn't come into the kitchen at all. And then just walked off. Sat there for about 5 minutes and just didn't look happy at all and just walked off.
Well, I was in the loo, as you do, and the lights were off.
And I was washing my makeup sponges by the sink, and I heard a click, turned around, thought it was a light switch, but the lights didn't come on immediately, so I thought nothing of it. Then the lights did come on.
Yeah.
And I said, "Yvette, the lights have come on."
And I went, "Oh, don't be silly, Marcel, you just turned them on."
And I had, no way, hadn't.
We went to speak to Bridget, and apparently that's a normal occurrence, and they like to switch themselves on. And not only that, but the loos like to flush themselves.
I won't go in there by myself.
I will never go in the loo on my own.
Well, I find this really funny because I just went to the loo and I walked in, perhaps 5-6 seconds later, the door behind me slammed shut. It didn't click shut, it slammed shut. So I was thinking, right, okay, someone's playing a trick on me. So afterwards, I checked. There was no one in the whole area. Andrea was cooking in 2 or 3 rooms away. And I carried my movements again. I restructured